big adventure. It really is. And retail and being a shopkeeper is one of the greatest adventures I believe you can ever travel in your life. I was born in 1963 on Bonfire Night, the 5th of November, which is, if you know me well, I am without doubt a firework that if you light, stand well back because you're never sure which way I'm going to go. The things I really love in life are creating fragrance, cosmetic, building businesses. But one of my greatest passions is to see small little businesses take one more step of faith and start to build, because I believe those are the businesses of the future that will make this country really great. One of the things that I do is I travel around the country and travel around the world now actually, sharing the story that I'm about to share with you. And that's all I have really. I don't have all the answers. I'm not the smartest person in the world. I'm not the richest person in the world. But what I do have is a story that really helps motivate people to get up and say, do you know what, if she can do it, so can I. And I go into schools a lot. And I love doing that, and sitting with teenagers who are about to take their GCSEs, O-levels, A-levels, and they're deciding, who am I and what do I want to do in life? And the question I asked them just recently was, what is an SME? Because I was sitting in, the Chancellor had just delivered a budget, it wasn't the last budget, but it was several budgets ago, and I go to the meeting just after the budget to listen to what the business arena think of the decisions that he made. And on this particular occasion, he started to talk about SMEs in a very powerful way. So I asked them, what is an SME? What do you think a small business is? And I want to read these to you. These were three of my favourite comments that they made that made me understand that our younger generation understand much more about small SMEs and small businesses than we think. A person who uses tough times to make them resilient, not dependent. And that was a 14-year-old boy whose father worked on markets. He understood that tough times are not things that we should shy away from, but they actually make you tougher. Someone who embraces undiluted creativity with anticipation and discipline, but does not seek to control its destination. That was a daughter of somebody whose mother worked in film. And film, music and fashion are the three industries that are really pounding forward and changing. Why? Because they respect creativity, but they don't try and control it so much that you take away its strength. And the last one, a person who seeks innovation and creativity and fulfills it with warrior-like tactics. And that was my son Josh, speaking about his mum. And I very much hope that our hour together this morning, that you will see that I am definitely someone that really loves creativity, but I am a warrior, and I will be prepared to fight for what I believe in and what I think. I thought an SME was, I was standing in this meeting, as I said, with the Chancellor and a whole group of people, and I whispered to my husband, what's an SME? And he said, you're one. So I sat there for a long time thinking, what does that mean? And he went, you're seriously menopausal eccentric. Charming. Still married to that man though. So my story starts way back when I was a young kid at school. My father was an architect and he was a great and brilliant painter. He was also a member of the Magic Circle, so he was a magician as well. And my mum at the time worked for Revlon. She was a manicurist, but a really brilliant beauty therapist. She had something incredible about her. So my jobs on a Saturday was to go to the market with my dad and help sell the paintings. And I was only 11 years old when I sold my first watercolour painting in a market. Very similar to this, so I'm really at home in this atmosphere. I would also be the magician's assistant on a Saturday. I knew how doves appeared out of pans of fire. My pet was a dove called Suki, and she would sit on my shoulder. And I knew how white rabbits appeared out of hats. He was also a great poker player, so I knew when he was playing with marked cards as well, I could read them. So my childhood was eclectic, to say the least. But you know something in life? Nothing, and I'm going to say this again and again through this story, nothing is ever wasted in life. No matter what happens to you, where you come from, what your education, what country you come from, nothing is wasted. Everything has value. And you'll see through this story that the little girl that was the magician's assistant the little girl that stood in the marketplace and sold paintings, and the little girl that knew that she never wanted to lose money and play poker, they would all come into play. I left school at 14 years old. My mum had been very, very, very sick, and my sister, who was 5 years younger than me, we were about to be put into care, and I was just 12 years old. And don't tell me how I did it, but I managed to talk the social worker into letting me look after our family and put my sister through school and me and not put us into care. And they did. And from that very, very young age, I remember sitting in the house on my own. My mum was very, very poorly, and my dad wasn't around at the time. And thinking, what am I going to do? There's nothing in the fridge. There's no money. What am I going to do to put money and food on our table? And I remembered that my dad had shown me and my mum had shown me how to make face creams. And because I'm horribly dyslexic, I wouldn't be able to follow a formulation, which was probably an asset, let me tell you, because if I looked at the formulation of my first cosmetic product, I may never have made it. But I remember the smell. I remember the smell of the oils. I remember how each product should look in this big enamel pan sitting on the stove. And I set about making my first 50 pots of lemon cleansing cream. And that was the beginning of my journey. I had 2 plastic jugs, 1 big saucepan and 3 little saucepans. And all I had was the memory of how to create a face cream. And so it began. Those 50 pots of face cream were sold for £4.50 each one. And they were all sold within 7 days. And suddenly, this little business, I was 13 years old, 12 to 13 years old, so a young teenager. And when you look today at some of the younger generation that come through, don't underestimate their age, because you know what, I had that business acumen already there at a very young age. I did lots of other kind of different things. I sold t-shirts. I did anything to make money. But really what I saw at that young age was my sense of smell was so acute, it was kind of almost uncanny. I thought everybody could smell like that, by the way, but they can't. And it's not until later on in life that I realised that was different. I left school at 14, 15. I had no qualifications. And at that point, I didn't really see the point in school, because I knew how to run a business, I knew how to make money, I knew what VAT, I knew what tax, I knew all of those things that although I had no CSEs, no GCSEs, no O-levels, no A-levels, nothing. And the world said, and I remember a careers teacher making me stand on my chair, and she said, "Jo Malone, you will never make anything of your life." Now, if I believed that teacher, I wouldn't be standing here right now, but I didn't. My first job, I was at 16 years old, I'd left school, I had no qualifications. I went and knocked on doors, and I thought, what do I love to do? Well, I love my sense of smell. So I thought, you know what, I'll go and work in a flower shop. I'd be good at that. I'm sure I'd be good at that. Nothing ever, when it comes to me in life, do I ever think I can't do it, unless it was going on the moon or heart surgery. I couldn't do that. But anything that ever comes to me in life, I think, you know what, I'll give it a go, because what's the worst that could happen? I fail. And you know what? Failure isn't the worst thing either. Not getting up and sitting there and doing nothing, that's the worst thing that you can do to yourself. So up I get, and I start in a tiny little shop called Justin DeBlank's Flower Shop in Elizabeth Street. And 16 years old, I had the happiest time for about 4 to 5 months. And then one summer's day, it was really, really, really hot, and I'd been asked to get up and do the market, which means you have to get up at 5:30 in the morning, go with the shopping list, go around New Covent Garden, get all the flowers from roses to lilies to eucalyptus, you name it, I did it. And I was hot and I was irritable and I hadn't had enough sleep, and I got back, unloaded all the van, put all the flowers in water, and the manageress came out and she said, "Jo Malone, what a mess. Look, there's geranium leaves everywhere and there's roses not been put in water." And she said, "Do it all over again. I don't want anything, do it all over again." And something just snapped. I'd never snapped in my life. I never felt angry. Something snapped in me, and I did a really dumb thing. And I picked up a bucket of water. And within 5 minutes was fired, because there were leaves sitting in her ears as I threw it over her. And the minute I did it, I thought, "Oh, I shouldn't have done that." And she said, "You're fired, you're fired." And I said, "Too late, I quit. I mean, when I think a 16-year-old teenager standing there and doing that. And I ran down the road to number 42 Elizabeth Street, which was owned by Justin as well. And it was a little delicatessen. And I was floods of tears, and she was following behind me. It was terrible drama. Anyway, I set to work at the delicatessen, and there I was in my second job, which lasted a few months as well. But the reason I tell you that story is I want you to hold that in your mind, because life often will bring you full circle in the least way you expect it, but it brings you back to the very place at which you first started and says, now go live the adventure. Now is the time for you to do this. And so there I was in the delicatessen. I had several jobs running up to opening a little skincare clinic. And I did everything from make beds in hotels, I washed up after people had dinner, I cleaned their floors. I've done it. I can square corner a bed better than anyone I know. And it's always good to have something else in your hand, just in case you need to go and do something else.